I have a special story for all my good boys and girls. So listen closely and we can go on a little adventure together into a special little world and get you off to sleep. How does that sound? Well, once upon a time, there was a good boy, our hero. He wasn't much of a hero yet. Anyway, he started off in his little village. He was fairly normal, but he was feeling a little lost. He didn't want to be a farmer like his parents, who had been farmers their whole lives, like their parents, and so on. Our hero didn't want that. So he left. And he just wandered for a while, still just as lost as how he was in the village, and would just go to town, just meeting new people, trying new food, among other things. One day, the town he was staying at was attacked by a mighty dragon. Our hero is not much of a hero at this point, so he had to hide and cower. The whole town was burnt down. He was very lucky to survive. As he picked himself up from the rubble, he caught a glimpse of the dragon. Its scales, red, crimson, sparkling in the daylight. The sunshine almost blinding him off of those scales. He felt a vengeful urge to go after the dragon, but some old son of a farmer couldn't take down a dragon all by himself. He only had a few loaves of bread and not even much gold. What was he to do? He kept up on his travels and kept going from town to town, looking for answers, trying to get stronger, trying to find out more about this dragon. Finally, he had purpose. Dragon hunters did have quite a bit of celebrity as well. So that did excite him quite a bit. Eventually he made it to a town where the king, I've said town, I don't know if towns have kings, but this particular town did have a king. And it was rumored that this particular king had slain a dragon back in the day, in his youth. He was an old man now. His dragon hunting days were behind him. So our hero went to the king and asked, "Is it true? Did you slay a dragon?" The king said yes. Of course. Hasn't everyone? Our hero was shocked. He couldn't believe it. He asked how. How do I slay a dragon? The king said, "Oh, it's easy. You just need something that can get through its scales. Only then can you kill a dragon." The hero said, what can get through the scales of a dragon?" The king said, "Well, for starters, its own scales, its teeth, its talons, and not much else. So as long as you have a weapon that is forged from one of those things, you will then be able to kill a dragon." Our hero then asked, "How do I get one of these? How am I meant to have a weapon made from a dragon if I can't slay one already?" The king laughed and said, "Well, isn't that a bit of a pickle? What are you going to do now? If only you knew someone that had one." Our hero said to the king, "Do you have one of these weapons?" The king said, "I've already said too much. You're only a stranger, a traveller. But I might. But I have no use for it anymore. In my old age, it is merely a reminder of how I used to be. My athleticism, my vigour, it's all eroded over time. I'm happy to give it to you, but I require something in return." "What is it?" our hero asked. "The crown of the Fairy Queen," he says. Our hero had no idea what that was. He was even unsure that fairies were real. So, our hero asked, "Where can I even get this crown?" The king said, "Well, the mushroom village, merely a few kilometers into the forest. It's hidden, but you can find it. If you're a good boy with a heart of gold, you can find it. Or rather, it'll find you." So, our hero packed his bag and ran off into the forest, eager to find this little kingdom. He strolled, and he was starting to get a bit weary. Tired even. So he lay his head down on a tree whose roots had come up a little too high, and moss had started to grow on them. He rested his head and fell off to sleep. His eyes slowly opened, and he was no longer where he fell asleep. He woke up under a small, what's the word? A collection, foray of mushrooms that had grown up out of the ground and was sheltering him. This is strange, he thought. Where am I? Then a little winged creature, probably only the height of a small dog, tapped him on the shoulder. said, "Excuse me, mister. What were you doing in the forest?" Our hero was surprised. He'd never seen a fairy before. Our hero said, "Who are you?" The fairy said, "I'm a princess. Who are you?" Our hero said, "Well, I'm just a farmer." And the fairy said, "What's a farmer doing out here in the woods? You're away from all your people." And our hero replied, I'm looking for the crown, the fairy queen's crown. My mother's crown. What use does that have for you?" Our hero explained the predicament, told of the dragon who he witnessed burned down the village. The fairy nodded, understandingly, and said, "Follow me." The fairy led him to her mother, who was a little bit around the woods, in a large dugout mushroom, sitting on a throne. Our hero could barely fit his head through the door, so he kind of popped his head in. Anyway, the fairy princess explained to her mother the predicament. The queen took the crown off her head and handed it to our hero and said, "You are of good spirit. You're a good boy. Here's your crown. Do good and slay that dragon." Upon receiving the crown in his hand, the hero woke up with his head still on that mist, on that root, in the middle of that forest, his palms clasped around a small crown embroidered with jewels. It didn't seem of this world. It seemed mythical. Our hero ran back to the king with his prize. The king, with glee, took the crown and placed it upon his finger. Our hero said, Is that embedded with some sort of power?" The king replied, "Absolutely not. It just looks nice. I've heard about it for ages and I thought it would be a cool ring. I lost my wedding ring, so I thought it would be a good replacement." And the hero didn't know whether to laugh or feel a little bit of something else. But anyway, the king led him to his private armory, down some halls, down some stairs, almost leading to what seemed like a dungeon. But no. The king led him to his private armory, suits of armor, bright red, forged from the scales of dragons, weapons adorning the walls, shining, shimmering, made from tooth, fang, talon, and scale. Mighty bows built from bone. But there was one that caught the hero's eye. A spear with a bright red tip. That's what he would use, he thought. just long enough where I could stand back and still pierce the dragon's neck. That one, please. The king smiled. That's the one I used. Please, it would be an honor. The king handed our hero the spear and said, you should probably take some armor too. You don't want to get burnt alive. Do you know how many people have tried without armor and turned into a barbecue? It's not a pleasant thing to see. The hero was starting to get a bit nervous with all this talk of barbecuing. The king said, I'll have my men escort you to the mountain, but from there you must climb to the peak by yourself. Understood? Go get some rest. You're gonna need it tomorrow. Our hero rested his head once again, this time on silk, in one of the king's private rooms, reserved only for the most finest guests. Our hero didn't dream. He was already living one. He awoke very early and just stood and stared at the ceiling. He couldn't think. He was too focused. He had a brief meal before he left with the king, who offered encouragement and survival tactics, and a few little extra tips as well, and also some unsolicited dating advice, which wasn't really high on his priority list right now, but he still appreciated it anyway, because it gave the impression that the king believed that he would succeed and live a life long after this battle. Four cavalrymen on horses, all bright white-furred, joined our hero. He had a dark black-furred horse. They all rode for a good 2 to 3 hours up north, towards where the dragon's den resided, at the tip of the mountain. Dragon Mountain, so aptly named. The cavalrymen bid our hero farewell and good luck on his journey. The mountain was not that high, but the footing was uneven and very unsteady. Armed with nothing more than rope, his spear, a few bits of bread, and some water, he began scaling the mountain, driven by determination and his desire to do well, and avenge that small town and make his parents proud, and prove to everyone that he was just a good boy, doing the right thing. After a few hours of climbing, he reached what appeared to be a summit. Snow had collected upon the dark, grey-scale stone of the mountain. But there was no dragon. He looked around, confused. He stood looking out over the vista, seeing the sun begin to set. He heard something a roar from the distance, but he couldn't see where. When all of a sudden, bang! The dragon had landed from above, silently, right behind him. Our hero was still tired from carrying his weaponry, his armor, his supplies. It was a long and perilous journey. But the sight of the beast filled him with vigor and made his fire burn bright. He stood in a very defensive stance, holding his spear, left arm towards the tip, right arm holding the rear. The dragon was poised to attack, but was cautious. The dragon noticed what our hero was wearing. He knew he was on equal footing, that this was going to be a good battle. The dragon lunged forward. Our hero stumbled back. The dragon snarled. He could smell the breath, the heat coming from the belly of the dragon. He felt afraid. He could feel the fear creeping through his courage. It just made him grip his spear tighter. He stood his ground and lunged back, taking a stab towards the dragon's neck. But the dragon was nimble and used its claws, its legs, its hands to scurry around and encircle our hero, keeping him on his toes, slashing, flapping his wings to try and unbalance his stance. But our hero stood strong. Each swipe was met with a stab of the spear, trying to catch one of the talons of the dragon. On one swipe, the spear went through the claw, shattering it to pieces. The dragon shrieked. It began to taste the same fear that our hero felt. Our hero could taste it, could taste the fear, and he doubled down. He continued to step forward, stabbing, lunging. The dragon was stumbling back without being able to stand properly on its front legs. It was stumbling too much to be in control. And on one fateful step back, it slipped. Our hero could see it. He could taste the advantage on his tongue, and went and plunged his spear through one of the dragon's wings and twisted it. The dragon shrieked and howled. It was so loud. Our hero could feel the vibrations in his soul. He pulled the spear back and went for his belly. But the dragon, desperate, fighting for his life, swiped back, catching our hero, throwing him to the ground. The hero was winded, could barely breathe, but the dragon was bleeding out, his wing damaged, unable to fly. Even though the dragon was stumbling, it was still clawing his way to the hero, ever so quickly. The hero needed to catch his breath back. He could barely catch it. And as the dragon made its approach and its final swipe to kill our hero, he stood his spear up and covered his whole body by the shafts of the spear, holding the talons right before his throat. How did he have the strength to hold back the whole strength of a dragon? Well, the fairies actually gave him a strength spell, and they didn't tell him, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Holding both ends of the spear, he pushed back against the dragon. The dragon fell back, crushing his wings. The dragon exposed on his back was mortally wounded. Our hero, drunk on achieving his vengeance, with his wind back in his lungs, menacingly stood right before the dragon, spear in hand. He looked down on the dragon with pity. He felt bad. The dragon is only doing what dragons do. The hero stood up and cut the wings from the dragon, stealing his flight, trapping the dragon to the top of the mountain, leaving him in his solitude. Once he had done that, he felt remorse. But he left, leaving the dragon to his domain for eternity. The dragon shouldn't have to die for being what a dragon is, he thought. Our hero descended down the mountain, got on his horse, which was waiting for him down at the bottom of the mountain, rode back to the city from which he met the king, thanked the king for his help, told the king that the dragon was no more, handed back the equipment to the king, and rode back to his village, where his mother and father were waiting with open arms. We both saw him on his bright black furred horse and said, "You've made a new friend." He said, "Yes, I did. Welcome home." And our hero farmed for the rest of his days. Often thought back to his journey up the mountain to the dragon, his time with the fairies, his time with the king. But all in all, he was just a good boy, doing what good boys do. The end. Sweet dreams.